everyone, it's Belinda with Bitchcraft. I wanted to show you my supplies that I'll be using in this episode of the column build using styrofoam coolers. Remember, I get my styrofoam coolers for free. I have a local sponsor that provides them for this build. We'll first start off with using a 220 sanding block, get at Lowe's. I lightly sand all the paper, the shipping labels, lightly sand. What I can't get off, I will then mist with water lightly and lightly sand. After that, I'm going to mark out my brick, but how I outline the bricks, I take my level and I use this section as the width of the brick. I also use it to make sure my lines are straight, so they're not crooked. This is a very helpful tool. If I had to guess, this is about C picture for actual size. But what I do is you can use this. It makes the lines more rigid. I don't use it. I do whenever I'm wanting something to look very old, very, very old. I'll use this method and then apply the heat gun. Mark out my bricks using this, outline it. I will come back with a solder iron and then I will hit it with my heat gun, which was bought from Ace. This was bought from Home Depot. Sanding the stickers, the shipping labels off my styrofoam coolers. Okay, that one's done. Now I'm going to time lapse it. Just wanted to give you the general idea. And the very first video that I posted was in these coolers. Remember, they're coolers, they hold water. So, and a lot of times we want to put things on top of our columns, which means we got to tack them down. And over the years as well, even though you don't use the top, holes get pierced in it from the top, just very random things occur. And from trial and error for myself, they ended up started holding water in the very top cooler to where it made it top heavy. Even though I had them anchored down into the ground, they would break because of the heaviness from the top. So I recommend for you to go and drill out a very big section out of each bottom cooler. That's what I did. Now my next phase will be to lay out how I want my brick to be exposed. So in this episode, I'll be using my leveling. This is a solder iron, just a regular steak knife. My two markers to lay out my design, and a heat gun that I got from Ace. So update, this is where we're at. Last you saw was I showed you how to melt the lines out. So I went ahead and did them all. My daughter went and kind of markered out where the cracks are going to be. That we'll do later. But right now what I want to show you is the next step where I use caulking to fill in every styrofoam cooler. Applying the caulking to each styrofoam to fill that in, that void. Just to let you know, I'm using a fast dry latex, so it dries in 20 minutes. In the bucket, I just have water and a rag. That's my cleanup. I just finished putting in all the caulking. I waited 20 minutes for it to dry, so it's dry. Now what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be adding my cracks. I played around to see what I kind of liked with the little marker. They're okay, but let's get started. This is how I do it, steak knife. I come and I think cracks start at points based off of things that I've seen. And just come down. Put a little bit on. So I didn't like this one right here, so I'm just going to put a little bit, fill it in. Like that. I'm going to look around, look for imperfections that I don't want to see, and I'm just going to fill it in. Like that. You can smooth it out with your hand. The brain that I've got here, it starts out pink, and once it's dry, it turns white. So when this turns white, I'll lightly sand it, wet sand it with 220, and then be done with it. Okay, so next what I want to show you is the spacing of my brick. Right here, this is two of my styrofoam coolers. Here's where I put the caulk in. And it just so happened the placement of that brick overlaps, and real brick doesn't have that. So again, I'm going to use my spatula. I'm going to come in here and I'm just going to fill in that hole. So far, that's what I've got. Go through and do all of those